Hello and welcome back to Coffee Chats with Chett. Before I jump into the topic this week, I just wanted to say a massive thank you. After my post last week, there were more people, more of you that reached out, some self-proclaimed lurkers from the blog that reached out and shared with me how the blog post last week really resonated and helped impact you in one shape or another. So I really appreciate you sharing your stories with me, and I really, really appreciate you listening and following along. This is why I do this. So thanks for filling up my bucket with a lot of hope, energy, and optimism last week. I really, really appreciate it. So let's dive in. So the topic this week is the courage to be disliked. So I recently read this book, The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, with some people on my team. And so I have a book club that I run with my team. We read a book every couple months and then get together and have a conversation about it. And I thought talking about this book in one of my blog posts made a lot of sense because honestly, it was the reaction of some of my team members that really made me take some more deep reflection. So this book is based on a really simple concept. And I would describe the concept by saying we as humans give a lot of energy and thought to what people think about us, as well as a lot of energy and thought about caring about the things that maybe we just don't need to care about. And so this really simple tool around just saying, well, let them and let it be free and get off your back and off your shoulders, it really creates a lot of space to just be yourself. And so after hearing from my team in terms of how this concept really inspired them in a lot of different ways, and they had a lot of ahas, honestly, it wasn't until they started to share some of their ahas with me that I started to have my own ahas on how this very simple tool, I now believe, is actually one of the most profound and biggest missing secret ingredients to helping someone along their journey to chase their potential. So what do I mean by that? In one of my earlier blog posts, and I'll put the link below in the description, I talked about the importance of first having a vision of being the person that you want to become. And so I leverage some of the learnings from James Clear in his book, Atomic Habits, where he says that in order to create lasting habits and lasting change, it really needs to be oriented in that version of who you want to be, who you want to become, who you want to grow into. And that in and of itself can give you a lot of energy and excitement and motivation to actually make lasting change in your life. So why I think this is one of the missing ingredients is because there's a really important step that hasn't been talked about much. And I think maybe that's why Mel Robbins is seeing such virality with her book and this really simple concept. And it's because once you have that vision of who you want to become, you then need to let go of that potential judgment, the stories in your head, or the fear of having people who may judge you, dislike you, maybe talk badly behind your back. All of those things you need to have the courage to really let go of, and ultimately have the courage to not be liked. So if that next version of yourself is a version where people might judge, or maybe it's a version that calls you to do something that you've never done before, and you're worried about people judging those actions that you need to take in order to become that version of yourself, really the power and the importance is having that courage to not care I know, easier said than done. And so I started to apply this to me and my own journey. And so I would have a vision of myself in terms of who I want to become in the next horizon, as well as the next horizon outside of that. And I would have actions and things that I'm doing to help me become those versions of myself. And not in my next horizon, but my next horizon, there would be things that I'm doing, like this podcast and this blog as an example, where I would definitely have had stories in my head or fear in my head about certain people maybe judging me, talking about me, saying bad things, etc. And it was a big barrier for me for a really long time, but I had to break that down for myself. And if I'm being really honest, when I started to break it down, the people in my head that I was worried about are actually people that I honestly wouldn't really want to hang out with. They're people that are great in their own way, but if I'm being really honest, like, they're people that I don't really like either. And so it was a really big irony for me that I was holding myself back from doing things, from being the person that I want to become in my next horizon outside of that, because I was afraid of a few people that might judge me in a bad way when I don't necessarily want to even hang out with those people. And so that was a big aha for me and helped give me some courage to take the leap and try something different and put myself out there so that I can step out of my comfort zone and so that I can start to take meaningful action into becoming that next version of myself. So this is the coaching this week, team. I want you to reflect on that person that you want to become. And I want you to think about some of the actions that maybe have been hard for you to take because you've had this story in your head about someone or some people or maybe a lot of people judging you in a negative way. I want you to become conscious and aware of that. And then I want you to start to practice, what does it feel like if you just simply stopped caring and let that go? What space is created for you? I think it truly is the secret ingredient, like I said, to becoming that next version of yourself, is really having that courage to stop caring what other people think. And I think, the other big realization is that you are the center stage actor of your life, but the reality is that everyone else around you is also the center stage actor of their own life. And so you may think that a lot of people are thinking about you and talking about you, but the reality is that they're thinking about themselves. And so it creates a lot of space just to remind yourself that not everyone is thinking about you. If someone is thinking something bad about you, it doesn't really matter in the big scheme and the big spectrum of things. And the ultimate reality is that if you don't try something that you haven't done before, your life will never be different. You will never change. And so have that courage to put yourself out there. Have the courage to be disliked. Have the courage to just let them and let go. And I promise you, things will change, and your greatness is just on the other side of that. Thank you so much for following. I very much appreciate when you reach out to me and share stories about how different concepts have impacted you in your life. So thank you for that. And if this is helping in any way, shape, or form, please consider liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with a friend or family member that you think this might help as well. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Monday.